The final stop on the road to WrestleMania has come and gone, but before we go smooth sailing towards the show of shows, we're going to take a look back at the biggest takeaways from WWE Fastlane 2021. So to start off the night, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, defended their titles against the team of Bianca Belair and the reigning SmackDown Women's Champion, Sasha Banks. Now, there's been growing tension between Belair and Banks, who are set on a road to WrestleMania themselves. They're going to be facing each other for Banks' Women's Championship at the show of shows. But before that, they decided to go for the gold. Now, obviously, the match was filled with a lot of hinting towards that, and the end result is kind of a huge indication of where they were going. So, we saw Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler work Bianca Belair for most of the match. She was basically getting the shit kicked out of her for most of the match. Sasha Banks comes in with a hot tag, and she cleans house for a bit. And then we saw a little bit of dissension between the two. Banks and Belair were at odds, and it ended after Bianca Belair essentially distracted Sasha Banks with help from Reginald, and Banks got rolled up 1, 2, 3. Now, obviously, Bianca Belair did not do this intentionally, but regardless, Banks was furious after the fact, slapped Bianca across the face. Bianca was left in the ring, pointing at the WrestleMania sign, saying, "I'm going to get you at WrestleMania." So that's going to be built up over the next few weeks, and look for that. Next, we have the Intercontinental Champion, Biggie, defending his title against Apollo Crews. Now, this isn't just any old Apollo Crews. This is a new and improved Apollo Crews. The same Apollo Crews that took Biggie and sent him to a medical facility after attacking him with the steel steps. Now, Apollo Crews and Biggie had a fantastic start to this match. It began with Biggie just wailing into Crews, attacking him, saying, "You asked for this. You asked for this." Attacking him on the outside of the ring, and it looked originally like it was just going to be a squash match for Big E, but then Apollo Crews got in some offense. And honestly, it was very captivating the way that they did it. Like, it was a very back and forth affair after that initial exchange where Big E had the upper hand. And I thought this was going to be a show stealer match of the night until the ending. Now, the match only lasted about 5 minutes because towards the end, we saw a series of roll-ups that looked a little botchy and a little fluky, which ended with a very weird and awkward 3 count to end the match. Neither superstar looked like they were prepared for that match to end then and there, and neither did the officials or the people in sound because they didn't play Big E's music right away. So Big E won via a weird roll-up. Announcers seemed like they played it off and they didn't really know what was going on. Obviously, I mentioned the sound guy, and the wrestlers looked confused. In the end, Apollo attacked Big E after the fact, and I guess that salvaged it. To me, it looked like a botch, but let me know what you think in the comments. Up next, we were supposed to have Braun Strowman finally get his hands on Shane McMahon after weeks of humiliation, being called stupid, and being slimed. However, that did not happen because Shane McMahon faked an injury and stated that he got injured while he was training. Now, instead, taking his place was Elias, handpicked by Shane McMahon, and Elias was promised if he won, he would get a match at WrestleMania. Elias did not win this match. Braun Strowman handled Elias very easily, beat him in about 3 minutes, and Jackson Riker, of course, was on the outside trying to provide some solace for Elias, and he did end up getting a little bit of offense in, but walk with Elias, no more. Braun Strowman won very easily, and it looks like we're going to have Strowman versus Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. Great. Next, we had the Messiah Seth Rollins taking on Shinsuke Nakamura in a match. On paper, Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura honestly is a great match and always is going to perform at that level, you would think. But I think it was just placed in that part of the card where you saw all the exchanges with Biggie and Apollo Crews. You saw the exchanges in that women's tag team match, and you were kind of tired. You were kind of, in the middle of the show is kind of like a piss break match at this point. So like they went out there and they did a thing, but it just, to me, didn't seem like it could have been what was promised. It could have been better, is what I'm trying to say. So Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura, good effort, but Next, they had the no holds barred match with Drew McIntyre going up against Sheamus. Now, McIntyre and Sheamus, obviously, they told the story. They were best friends for 20 years. Sheamus turned his back just a few weeks ago on his best friend, attacking him from behind, attacking him several times backstage in the coming weeks. And then it all led to this match. No holds barred, falls count anywhere, and boy, was this a slobber knocker, as JR would say. This, honestly, to me, up until this point, was the match of the night. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus were laying into each other. Stiff shots. They told a story in the match, too. These actually did seem like two people who wanted to hurt each other. They fought outside into the Thunderdome. Drew McIntyre threw Sheamus into one of the screens and it exploded. Much bigger explosion than we saw at AEW Revolution. And it was great. We saw Sheamus take McIntyre through a table. We saw McIntyre in the end pull out the victory with a Claymore kick. And it was just 19 minutes of two people who knew each other for a long time, who know how each other wrestles and know how to work with each other, just beat the hell out of each other for 19 minutes. And it was entertaining. Definitely go check out this match. Next, we had Alexa Bliss take on Randy Orton in an intergender match. Now, obviously, they were never going to have Randy Orton take on Alexa Bliss in a straight wrestling match. But they did the most with what they were given, and boy, was it worth it. So the match starts off. Alexa Bliss puts her arms up, turns down the lights, and we see a very dark purple lighting all around the arena. Very ominous for Randy Orton. Randy Orton makes his way to Alexa Bliss, and we see fire come up from under the ring. And Randy Orton scurries away. And then Alexa Bliss lures Randy Orton to the outside, puts her hands up, brings him down, and along with her, she brings down the lights from the top. Again, scaring Randy Orton, scurrying away. Orton tries again in the ring to get to her, and a fireball is seen thrown right into his face. So, obviously, Alexa Bliss had a lot of shenanigans she was working with and a lot of mystical powers. But it all was worth it to what we saw in the end. A returning Fiend in a hideous, burnt-up, grotesque mask. And he attacked Randy Orton, Sister Abigail, and Alexa Bliss pulled out the victory in 4:45. And what we know now is we are likely going to get Randy Orton versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania in what we can only hope is going to be another Firefly Funhouse match. Finally, let's get to the main event, the match of the night. Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman taking on Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship with Edge as special guest referee. Now, obviously, Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan have been battling on the mic, and one of the things that Daniel Bryan has said repeatedly is, I'm going to make you tap out at Fastlane. He said it multiple times, and he made a point to say it multiple times, because that was the story of the match. Daniel Bryan was not trying to win this match with pinfalls. He was trying to make Roman Reigns tap. And there were a lot of times where he got close. Daniel Bryan, this was a masterpiece of wrestling. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns literally made art in the middle of the ring. Counter after counter. Roman powering out of label locks. Roman Reigns getting just blindsided by Daniel Bryan and his reversals and his submission moves. There were multiple times in the match where you literally were like, are they actually going to put Bryan over? But, the finish of the match kind of was a little predictable, but left a little bit left to be desired. Let's get into that. So after about 25 minutes of Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns putting on a clinic, the ending sequence of the match saw Bryan accidentally hit Rudy Charles, a referee, with a running knee, and he was out. So Special Enforcer Edge was apparently given the authority to be the special guest referee now. So Edge comes in, does his referee duties, and then we see Jey Uso come in. Jey Uso super kicks Edge. He super kicks Daniel Bryan, and then it's a big schmoz. Daniel Bryan hits Jey with a chair, and then he goes to hit Roman Reigns with a chair, but then he accidentally hits Edge. And Edge is down, and in that time, Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns find themselves locked in again, and Daniel Bryan locks in the lapel lock once again for a third time. Nowhere for Roman to go. No referee, however, and Roman Reigns tapped out to the lapel lock. But as soon as he started tapping out, Edge took a steel chair to the back of Daniel Bryan to break it up. Then he hit Roman Reigns with a steel chair before walking off angrily. And, well, we saw what happened at the end. Another referee comes in. Roman Reigns is able to get Daniel Bryan on the ground, cover him 1, 2, 3 to retain his championship. Roman Reigns versus Edge at WrestleMania. But what if this is working towards a triple threat match? More on that later. But Fastlane overall was a fantastic show. And I'm not going to lie, I did not have high expectations for this show, but it exceeded any expectations I had. I'm going to give this show a solid 4 out of 5. You know, there were some parts that weren't great. Like I said, Seth Rollins and Nakamura really underperformed for me. Anything involving Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon together, I don't approve of. The Biggie and Apollo Crews match probably could have gone longer. I don't know. Like I said, I think there might have been a botch there. But the last 3 matches with Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, with Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton, with Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan were fantastic. And hey, man, I don't like having 3 pay-per-views in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. But hey, Fastlane did its job, accomplished what it needed to, and it was a damn good show.